Recording. Three, two, one. Hey, hello, everybody. Welcome to Copabe Play Ball, our second edition. And we, as always, are excited. Before we start, don't forget, go to wbscamericas.org. Hey, check out what's going on right now, the Serie de las Americas U15 event. All the great countries from Copabe are participating. And if you don't catch it right away, it'll be also on the website. You can catch it later. So again, thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Pete Caliendo. What a special honor. Again, I want to thank all the Copabe officials for trusting me and being your host of Copabe Play Ball, the English version. And today, let me tell you something. I got one of my best friends on the show, and he's not on the show because he's my best friend. He's one of my best friends, I should say. And I have a small circle, as Eddie knows. He has a small circle also, the people he trusts. But let me tell you, I have him on because it's one of the best baseball stories, best life stories that I have ever heard in the game of baseball. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I know he's on the show. I'm going to introduce him in a second, but I'm going to go on a limb. After I tell you what he's done in baseball, there's no doubt he should be managing in the big leagues. Look, guys and gals, there's a lot of great managers in the big leagues. I've seen some guys hired that don't have nearly the experience that Eddie has. And let me tell you what this experience is. First of all, I'm just going to give you the highlights, and he's going to tell you the story behind the highlights. Biggest highlight, great person, loves the game, loves players. He's a player's manager, but he's also can be tough and straightforward. And he's a street guy. What I mean by street guy, he's streetwise. And finally, get this. You tell me how many coaches have done this, how many managers. 5 championships. In 3 years, 3 with Obregon in the Mexican League. He won in the Mexican Professional League, 3 championships, and 2 in the Caribbean World Series. So you tell me, a fluke? I doubt it. It's because how good he is at what he does. So let me welcome, and he's a former professional player, but he'll tell you a little bit about his story here in a minute. Let me welcome my good friend, Eddie Diaz. What's up, buddy?
Hey, P, it's pretty hard to do an echo what you introduce somebody. But thank you again. Thank you again. It's my pleasure to be in your shows. And you do an amazing job actually communicating with the whole world of a beautiful sport. Thanks again.
Thank you, my friend. And let me tell you, it's really easy to get pumped up talking to you just because of, one, everything you've done for me, but also your story in the game of baseball. And I get pumped up with most guests, but, sometimes, guys like you really get me going because I think, I really believe that you can manage in the big leagues without a doubt. And people are going to say, well, Pete, what do you know about managing in the big leagues? Look, I know about people, and I know about how, about individuals. And all I got to do is look at what you've accomplished and then look at the type of person you are. And there's no doubt about it. You can do it. You can manage in big leagues and do a very good job there. But let's do this. I want the folks to know in Copabe. Copabe obviously represents North, Central, South America, and the Caribbean islands. Some of the best baseball countries in the world are at all levels, right? Some of the best players in the whole world come out of Copabe. And I want Copabe to know, and I know they know about your background, but I want them to know, and also people that are outside of Copabe to listen to your story. You were born in Dominican Republic. So I'd love for you to talk about your childhood, some of the things you did as a player, how you grew up, the tough part about maybe living in the Dominican, the great part about living in the Dominican, and how it influenced, and I know it's a lot of questions here, but how it influenced what you're doing now.
Well, first of all, I did born in the Dominican Republic in a small town called San Francisco de Macorís, and I have a great childhood. I got great parents. My mom and dad, rest in peace. It was great. But for you to know, I never told you this before, my first love in sport was not baseball. It was actually basketball and karate.
Wow.
And in baseball was exciting for me. And it happened with a lot of young kids in Dominican. Every time the winter ball's coming, that's when people get excited back then. Because remember, back then, there was probably, you watch one game from the MLB, from the big league, and that was black and white. And I used to ask my father, because he watched a game at night, I say, is the daylight over there or what? Because that was a repetition of the game. There was a video. So, but anyway, I did born in a beautiful country, and the passion for sport, especially baseball, was great, and it still is. And I remember my first coach that he told me when I was playing baseball, I was actually 10 years old. He says, "You look like a player. One day you're going to be a baseball player." And that stuck in my mind. So, but it was just exciting. It's playing baseball, it's other sports, but it's the religion baseball when, in Dominican Republic.
And yeah, and I want to mention, obviously I've been in Dominican a lot, and I bring a lot of teams there, and I've done some coaching programs there, and first of all Latin America, great people, fun to be around, passionate for the game, love the game. What about when you were a kid? I mean, we're talking about growing up there. What was your daily routine? With school, with playing? Did you play with a team that was organized? Did you play with the guys and gals in the streets? I mean, what was everything, kind of your daily thing that went on?
Well, basically, we play a lot of what they call cricket in Dominican was La Plaquita. So we get the license plate and kind of bend it and put them in probably 200 feet away. And we have a stick in our hand with a little hole that we have marked with a marker or whatever, with a rock. And we play a lot of that in the street. And I remember back in the days when we played baseball on the weekend, I'm talking about back in what I born in San Francisco de Macorís. We have one baseball for the whole game. And when it goes in the bushes, everybody go and chase the ball because otherwise we don't have no game. And I remember the first time that I catch, I have no mask, no shingles, no chest protector, just a glove. And not everybody has a glove in their possession. I mean, it's only a few of us that come from some family, they have a little bit of money and they capable to purchase a glove for us. So it was beauty. I mean, when you go back and really, when you see these plays, they tell you they have gloves made out of different stuff, like materials. That's true. I mean, we went through all that. Or get a big stick and kind of put it down and create a baseball bat. So that was a beautiful childhood playing the sport of baseball.
If I remember right, the town you're talking about developed a lot of shortstops in minor league baseball and major league baseball.
San Pedro de Macorís was unbelievable. I mean, all those guys coming up, and I can never forget in 1979, 1980, when we played in what we call the reserve, we belong to the Licey team. It comes this gentleman, rest in peace, good friend, Tony Fernandez, long arms, long legs. And he was so much advanced, like if he playing for 20 years already. So shortstop back then was unbelievable. It was coming up like it was water draining.
Eddie, something I was thinking about, in the States here, I know, we've kind of identified kids when they play, they play like 15U and you got to be a certain age, and 14U and then 13U and so forth. And it's happened in a lot of countries. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm wondering, when you grew up in a Dominican, I know even when I grew up, did you really worry about the age? Wasn't it more about the ability and you just play with different ages and whoever you can find?
Well, right now, scouts don't worry about that, but back then they did. I mean, if you were not young, it was pretty hard to be signed. It was so good watching Nathalie Cruz, one of the best scout ever in the game of baseball, that he actually don't worry that much about an age because he says if somebody's 22 years old, for any reason I can sign them, it becomes easier for them. When you come in the game of baseball back then was not easy. Competition, I could say it was limited because it was less team, but there was less opportunity. I mean, when you get released in the minor league today, even the big league, you go and play independent baseball, which is the best thing ever happened to baseball because a lot of players extend their career. Mm-hmm. And back in the days, I remember we were practicing one evening and there was a big long guy with long arms and legs. He has a 50 arm, I believe 55 raw power, beautiful body, but he was not signed because actually he was 20 years old. And I was thinking, man, this guy that got all the tools in the world, he can't even get signed. They consider him that he was old. So now it's a different thing. I mean, they sign kids as 20, 21 now, try to match with a lot of kids come out of college at the same age.
Yeah. And then by the way, folks, I want to mention there's a lot of things that he's done in the game. Another thing he's done is he was an international scout with the Rays. And since you're talking about that, when you're talking about Latin America in general, Copabe, all the countries, especially Latin America, I want to focus on that a little bit. The reasons we're getting so many great players from these countries, there's got to be certain things that occur that develops these players at a certain level? I get it. They may not be perfectly developed when they get here in the States yet. Nobody is. But what's the reasons you're seeing a lot of players coming out of Latin America?
The desire. They have a great desire to be in top. And it's not only the Dominican Republic, it's Venezuela, Mexico, Panama, Nicaragua, everywhere.
Everywhere.
They want to be on top. They want to be one of the best athletes in the world. And I remember having a conversation with Luis Urias when he was actually going to be 15 years old. And you and I met that time. That was in Mexico City in Foro Sol. 14 and 15 years old, and he hit him with a good raw power back then, probably 45, 50, young kid. And somebody approached me and asked me, do you like him? I said, yes, I like him. And I remember the Padres was after him in the early age. And he asked me, yeah, but you don't think he's too small? I said, who gave you small? Watch his ability, watch his desire. And look at him now, 20 plus home runs in the big league. And it was a pleasure for me to be his manager when I managed Obregon. And just watching him grow was unbelievable. So Latinos in this era wants to be on top. And a lot of people take it the wrong way. USA embraced them. You know, they want that. MLB wants that. They want culture to be different. So it becomes a beauty. Some people probably don't agree. I know some players have exaggeration of celebration and doing crazy things. But, you know, the game of baseball, athlete-wise, it becomes enormous.
Eddie, you mentioned desire. You know, sometimes we can misinterpret that a little bit. I think most people understand in certain areas of Latin America, you know, players look and want to play Major League Baseball. You know, they also want to get out of the country in some ways to have a better living if they can get to Major League Baseball. But it's not just that, is it? There's also the passion for the game. It seems like they love the game. They play it with a flair. They play it with, no matter if they're playing in the streets or if they're playing pro baseball, they play it the same way with a lot of passion.
They have a price to pay. I mean, you're right. I mean, some of those kids, when you go to their houses and they don't have any education, you know, they got poverty, they want to get better. And in one of my seminars, which you and I have been together and a few of them, I always tell them, I mean, if you think from your neck all the way down, you're going to cost $10 an hour. If you think from your neck all the way up, the limit is the sky. So if you pay the price, you're going to get what you want in life. Maybe you don't get it today, but you probably will get it tomorrow. And, you know, God delayed things, but he don't deny anything.
Love it. Love it. And folks, I'm going to mention this also. Whether you're a Copabe country or whether you're outside somewhere in the world, you're looking for someone to come out and motivate and talk about motivation, talk about, you know, building a team, the culture and all that. Let me tell you, you're not going to find anybody better than Eddie Diaz. So get a hold of him. We'll have all this information in the show notes. Eddie, the other thing is we're talking about, you mentioned the word athleticism. You know, there seems to be a lot of players, young kids coming out of those countries, out of Copabe, that are also very athletic. How's that developed? Is that on their own, or do they play different sports? What'd you do and what do you see now?
It's a better system. A lot of coaches, they take it more serious. You know, before it was mom and pop situation, which I respect a lot, but the knowledge was not there. Today is more knowledge. Players are more active, going to the gym, practicing. You know, back in my days, I mean, you go practice a couple of hours, you go back, you swing, you throw, and that was it. Today is different. It's a lot of different avenues how to get better with your body. But one thing that I can tell you is athletes, not just in Latin America, but worldwide, it's getting so strong. It's unbelievable. And getting to know athleticism is part of coaches and managers. I remember when I got a phone call from Mazatlan for manager this winter. And he told me, he says, you're going to have a ball club with a very limited power, but it's a lot of athletes. I said, okay, no problem. I make sure that my training camp is based on that until you give me a couple of guys with some raw power in the lineup. And we dedicated time just to know how to steal, how to run, how to bunt, how to take pitches, and how to create the atmosphere of winning a ball game in the first inning, in the middle of the game, or in the last inning of the game.
Great stuff. Love it, man. You know, the other part of all this, we talk about desire, athleticism. You know, the other aspect of it is the fundamental part. And that's what it sounds like you're talking about. I mean, you're going back and you're still sticking with the fundamentals of the game, depending what your team needs. And you're building on that. How strong is that in when you were growing up in the Dominican, the fundamentals?
It was bad. I mean, everybody wants to be raw. I mean, I want to hit the ball 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I want to hit the ball 100 miles away. I want to run crazy. But it's got better and better and better through the years. You know, Latinos wants to show too much, even when they do 60 yards or when they throw from the outfield. I remember back then, a lot of catcher has a 55 arm, but they want to throw so hard. There was no fluid, no mechanic. There was no quick feed. Now it's different. And it's been pretty good scouts that I've been next to it. And to name somebody like Rene Gallo, Steve Miller, and on and on and on. And when you watch those guys, how they describe, the ability of a ball player now and how it's going to be in the future, that's what it is now. But back then, remember, scouts used to go to Latin America and do three things: run 60 yards, throw from the position, and EVP. Not today. I mean, today the guy have to watch those guys 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 at bats. They got to watch them in BP. Pitchers, they got to watch a lot of them. And then start coming out with meetings and put projections. I remember back then was one of the best scouts out of the Dominican Republic, if he's not the best, Ramon Pena. Ramon Pena used to have a great eye, who can play, who cannot play. And it's a lot of them, Ismael Cruz and so on and so on. And even in Mexico now, a lot of young scouts coming up pretty good. Mike Brito has done a great job, but out of Mexico as well, and Venezuela and Panama, they have to actually find out this kid can play, not just to 60 yards, throw from the outfield, and swing BP 10 at bats.
Folks, we're going to get Eddie's story because that's a highlight. Let me tell you. So we're saving that for the end because we want you to stick with us. And, Eddie, something interesting. Back then, when you grew up and you came over at 17 years old when you signed, and I'm going to let people, you're going to tell that story when you came over. But back then, things were a little different. They signed players. They just came over and it was kind of like, well, good luck. Here you go. Learn the language, learn how to get your meals, do this, do that. Now it's changed. It's a lot more organized. They prepare these young people how to come to the U.S. and how to do certain things. Talk about your experience coming here and now what it is like as a scout and as a professional team, what they're doing different.
Well, it's totally different. I mean, when you get signed, you got to find a way how to practice. It's not like now every team has a place to go. Or even if I will belong to what they call Buscones, which I don't think is the appropriate way to, to pronounce our duties of these people. I mean, I believe they're coaches. So they go to the coaches and practice and they get ready before they go. Back then, you got signed and you got to find a way how to practice with 2 or 3 baseballs and ready spin training. I remember when I was signed by the Yankees from a great scout, rest in peace, Wilfredo Calvino. And I remember when we sit down in right field, everybody from the Yankees, and this gentleman just says to all of us, we are the New York Yankees and we are the #1 organization in baseball. You got to walk like one and nobody walks over here. And I'm thinking, you got to walk like one, but nobody walks over here. What is this? Oh, that means is whatever they call you, whatever you go, you got to jog or run.
Yeah.
And my first weekend to the spin training, I really want to go home. It was crazy. And that was in Dania, Hollywood. And I remember from the hotel, we have to walk like probably about a mile, go through the railroad track and walk to the field and be ready. I remember the first guy who has release. He was crying. And I'm thinking, why he's crying? And a friend of mine says, Eddie, he got released. He's fired. And that stuck in my head like, wow, this is crazy.
Wow.
And the beautiful part of baseball is that my first manager in professional baseball never played professional baseball. And he ended up managing in the big league. He was hard back then, but pretty good person. Baseball man, Carlos Tosca.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and the pitching coach was Hoy Wilhelm,
Yep.
Hall of Famer. So when you go back, you don't remember the hard days. You remember the good memories.
Yeah, that's awesome. And nowadays, a little different now because it is intimidating for a 17-year-old to come here. It doesn't speak the language possibly. And again,
It's easier, B.
it's
Now
easier now.
they have teachers. Let me tell you, when you get that little break in spin training or the extended spin training, and you got to go have lunch. You know what was the lunch? It was a cup of soup, crackers, one apple or one banana, and your orange juice was the Gatorade.
Wow.
Right now, it's a different ball game. You have a nice lunch. You got pasta, you got sandwiches, you got salad, you got whatever you want. If you have a problem, you got a translator. It was different back then. Now it's much easier. It's more talent. There's more talents. The competition is even larger, but things go with the era. Back then, you got a uniform with spikes. That's how you start your practice. That's how you finish. You don't get tennis shoes or turf shoes or shorts. It was a different ball game.
Wow, times I'm changing, and for the best. Eddie, let's get into the story now because I think this is awesome. Your background, you come to the U.S. as a player, go from there. Tell us a little bit about what that was like and what happened, how it influenced what you were going to do in the future.
Well, it was tough. First year I went to the Yankees, like I mentioned before. Then I got released. I used to have a bad temper, and there was no connection with the manager. And I was not a prospect. If I would have probably been a prospect, I would not be released. But I signed with the Braves by a great man, rest in peace as well, Pedro Gonzalez. And I got released again. And I came crying. Everything was after the season, though. I was crying, and my mom says, you probably have to think about if you're going to keep playing or you're going to change your temper. So I spoke with Carmen Castillo and Luis Isaac and Cookie Acevedo and Junior Novoa, and they talked to the Indians. And my mom paid for the trip. I went to Tucson, Arizona back then. And I did make the organization one of the teams. I made the rookie ball club. I did pretty well. Even they liked me so much, they consider me a prospect. They invite me to a couple major league games and spin training. So to cut the story short, 1985, I broke my finger from my catching hand, and I was released in the end. I played winter ball, but the most beautiful thing that happened that year, 1985, is I married my wife, which we've been married for 37 years.
Wow, congratulations.
And if I met that woman again, I marry her again. She's done a great job with my kids, our grandkids, and our family. So I played winter ball. Then after that, I was out of the game for 14 years.
Wow.
I sold real estate. I sold insurance. I paid my high price. I remember my wife and I went to New York with $250 in our pocket and a credit card. And we started living, not in an apartment, in a room. We have to share the same bathroom with other 5 people in that building. But everything would start getting better. It was a desire. I wasn't fighting from poor to be more poor. I was ready to pay the price. I was getting better. And I was promoted in a big real estate company. And then in Chicago, that's how I met you.
Yep.
So after a while, I met a good friend, which I consider my brother, Chris Fanta. And we decided to open a sport agency. And that's how I ended in Mexico. So in Mexico, I met a beautiful man that everything is because of him. Rest in peace, Chara Mansour. And I remember the last month of the season, Chris Fant and we brought some scouts to see some of the players. And then he asked me what time I was leaving the next day. I said, I'm leaving at 6 a.m. because my flight from Veracruz to Houston, Chicago is at 9 o'clock in the morning. And he just told me, he says, I got the manager to finish the season. This is in Córdoba, Veracruz. And I said, oh, that's good. So you don't have to struggle anymore. And your manager, don't panic so much. And I asked him, who is that new manager? He goes, it's you. I said to my line, not even literally. And I was out of the game for 14 years. And he says, I don't care. You remind me of Winston Janus. He actually made the transition of Winston from player to manager. So I said, all right, let's do it. So I met with his son, Pepe Mansour, and he started writing numbers about paying me. I said, listen, man, I never managed in my life. Let's do this thing. For every game that I win, give me $200. If I don't win, don't pay me. And that's how it started. That's how it started. And I did manage and become an advisor with the teams, you know, taking players from Mexico, place them in Korea. But I never took managing serious. It happened in 2007 when Rene Gallo approached me. And he says, Eddie, you're very good for players. You have the little touch for the pitching staff. Why you don't manage? So as you remember, because you and I are friends by that time, I used to own my basketball team from the IBL. I got a couple of boxers. I was Chris Fanta partner. And actually, I saw everything out. And I decided to become a manager in 2007. And that's when everything started clicking in. And God first, the support of my family, all the great players I have in the front office that give me the opportunity. That's how the championship came in.
You know, what's amazing about this whole story is, okay, you're 17 years old, you played professional baseball in the States for a little bit, then you get into business. You know, you're in the, first of all, in the real estate business, then you're all of a sudden in the agency business, you're doing well in those. Also, and then all of a sudden, this guy that's the owner of the club, you know, you have no managing experience, no coaching experience, very little of it. You are managing people in a lot of ways in other areas.
Yes.
And he trusts you that much. We're talking about the Mexican Professional League. We're not talking about a little league program in town. What did he see? What do you think he saw? You mentioned that, you know, he saw that you were good with people, and that's great. But he had to put a lot of trust in managing games. The owner did. What else do you think he saw in you that they made that decision?
I think one day he was kind of upset. We were watching the game together, and I say, "Hey, things gonna get better." He says, "How do you know?" Because he was tough. I said, "Well, because in life, the magic of success is the patient." He goes, "You're right." So he just come up with that. I mean, he was a type of a person. He convinced Rico Cardi back then to go play in Córdoba, Veracruz, and Cardi went from Córdoba, Veracruz to the big league, back to the big league. I mean, Victor Davalillo went from Córdoba to the World Series with the Dodgers. So it was something of this man that he has that vision for that, and he probably did with me.
Well, and and he saw. Go ahead.
And Mexico has been great for me. Mexico is a country that I love from the bottom of my heart. My kids actually visited Mexico before the Dominican Republic. Mexico is a country that a lot of people ask me why I do a lot of charities and why I do all that kind of stuff. Is because they've been great to me. They've been great to me. And players, I'm going to tell you this before jumping to scouting. It's a beautiful story for player. I saw this kid, a little overweight, okay, in my days of scouting with the Rays, our organization that I respect so much, and I'm so grateful they give me a job for 10 years. And I have a lot of friends over there. And I saw this kid in the academy in Monterey, academy that you've been there before. And nobody paid attention to him. But every time I see this kid don't miss. I mean, fast speed, he knows how to play the game. And I said, man, I'm going to take a risk. And I'm not one of, I don't consider myself a great scout, not a good scout. I was a guy that understands a little bit of talent. And it's been good things that I've done with some players, and they play far. But anyway, I brought him to the Dominican Republic. And for some reasons, you know, some of our guys don't like him. I mean, but it's part of the game.
Yeah.
And I remember when I talked to my old boss, and he says that kid would not have an opportunity. I say he will, because he can hit. So he goes, we see. I say, okay, we will see. And in 2.5 years later, he's in the big league, Alejandro Kirk.
Wow.
So in my ex-boss, Steve Miller, to me, I consider one of the best. He says, now I understand when you said, don't look at the body, look at the talent of the Mexican players.
Yeah.
And I said, everybody doesn't have the perfect body. But I tell you what, when you see the guys over here, the desire that they have now to play the game is is unbelievable. It's totally different. See, back then they want to stay in Mexico and play in the summer league and play in the winter ball, which I understand. Back then they made good money. But right now they understand it's better they have $20 million in the bank. They have 5 million pesos in the bank. So to me, it's the era, the next years to come here to Mexico and look for players.
Great points. I love that. And by the way, I got to mention this because, you know, I want to go back for a second. The owner, you know, you're talking about desire. The owner saw something in you and he made that choice. Okay. There's the flip side of this now because you know, there's a lot of coaches out there that want to coach at higher levels and do different things. What was it like when he told you, I want you to be my manager? You had in the back of your mind, you had to be thinking, man, I got no experience. I mean, do I really want to do this? Do I want to take a risk? You know, there's that fear of making that jump. Why did Eddie Diaz not have that fear? Why did Eddie Diaz not say, well, you know, I'm not meant for this. I'm meant for something else. What was that like to make that decision? Because we're talking about managing a big league club here in Mexico.
It's one thing. I waited for 14 years. I was out of the game for 14 years. I was just making a phone call and say hi to some of my ex-friends in the minor league, now playing the big league. So I'm thinking like, wow, it's like when you do your speeches, which you're one of the greatest, you get a butterfly in your stomach. But after that, you say, I'm going to take that and convert it into positive. When he said that to me, right away, I say, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. So who cares? Let me apply everything I learned in life and what I did as a salesman, was a sales manager, was a regional manager, and apply to the players. What is so difficult to manage? Manage baseball is easy. I mean, you know when you're going to bunt. You know when you got to take the pitcher out. How can you manage baseball players and make them happy and understand them? You have to understand the nature of each one of them. And that's why it doesn't matter how late I leave the ballpark, I'm there at 10:30 in my office. I got to watch what's going on. I want to watch their face, how they come in, who has a problem, you're like a doctor. You go to the office like a doctor. So to me, it was easy. And I remember that time that he says, the first game, go to the bench and just, you know, get the feel. I said, okay. So I remember the manager took the pitcher out and they threw the manager a dirty diaper. And I'm thinking, this waiting for me or what? But no, it's part of the game. I mean, especially one day a manager came to me and he says, I'm having problems with so-and-so. I said, take him out to lunch. He goes, I'm not going to spend any money with a baseball player. I said, well, that's your problem then. I mean, if you spend $100 at dinner with a player and this guy's going to be productive for you, you already invest in yourself and you become successful. Because at the end of the day, it's because of players. I don't care what anybody say, oh, this manager had the magic touch to make sure that, no. If you get them ready to play and they believe that what you say, trust me, they're going to play for you. But the one who hit the home run, to steal the bases and do the things, it's the players, not you.
Yep. And what about the media? Is that another part of area of managing? You got to learn how to deal with the media, how to communicate with them.
You got to be patient. I remember one manager, he came to me, he said, Eddie, I have a big problem with this reporter. I said, what's going on? He says, well, this guy's bombarding me. I said, but you're winning or losing? No, I mean, we're losing. I said, he's going to bombard you anyway. So what you need to do is become his friend. Oh, he's a bastard. I said, well, it's better to have a bastard as a friend than have a bastard as an enemy. So my point of view is if I see somebody in the field and he been blasting me for any reason, I go say hi to him like if I was his best friend. That's his job. I mean, that's his job, and eventually he will know who I am if I do something or not. So, you know, those things don't bother me.
Folks, by now, I'm sure you're getting a pretty good feeling why Eddie's been so successful. He's going to continue to be successful, managing right now in Mazatlan, Mexico, the professional league there. Eddie, you're talking about Cordoba. All of a sudden now you end up in, I believe after that, Obregon with 3 championships in a row. Was there something in between there?
It was in between, because when I managed, I did manage, but it was more business than managing. That's what Chris Fanta, my partner, which is, I love him like a brother. Him and I, we said, okay, with the money that comes in, we use our money for our corporation. We bring players, I was doing the job as a manager. I managed 2000, 2001, 2002. I did not. Remember, I was certified. 2003, I was an advisor of one of the teams. 2004, I managed only half of the season because the player association say, hey, you're either an agent or you're a manager.
Mm.
So 2005, I was an advisor of the team. And then 2006, I went to Calientes because one of the owners says, please, can you manage? Because I'm going to fire the manager. I went there, Pepe Mansour. So I went there. So I went to manage the Veracruzana, which the rookies, which I enjoyed. And in 2007, I got an offer to become a bench coach in the Dominican Republic with Aguila Cibaeño, Felix Fermin, which is a good friend of mine. And that's when Rene Gallo approached me. And he says, you had a tremendous ability. Why you don't put the other things to the side and dedicate yourself as a manager? So I was thinking. So anyway, I went to the Dominican as a bench coach. It was not in my head. I still want to be in the other businesses. And then he called me. He called me and to manage Mazatlan. And I came to Mazatlan to Winter Ball. And now I'm going to manage the Winter Ball. And we went to the finals. I mean, the team has some problems. Mazatlan has a great success through all these years, especially with its manager, Pacho, Juan Jose Pacho, a good friend of mine. We played together in the minor league, and he got released. So I came over. It was tough at the beginning because he's still big over here. But for some reason, when you start winning, things start getting better. To cut the story short, we went to the finals, and we lost against Obregon. And in the following year, they don't brought me back to Mazatlan. So I go to bench as a bench coach again. And guess what? Obregon, it was in last place. So Obregon called me and I went there. So from last place, we went to the playoff. So we lost in the semifinals. So I come back and be a manager, lost in the semifinals. And then we win three years in a row, which is a record. So far, I'm the only manager to done it. Grateful for the players, grateful for the front office in a beautiful city. And in that frame of time, the 3 years, we win 2 Caribbean series, which the last one, it was in Mexico. In Hermosillo, we played 18 innings against the Dominican Republic.
Wow. And folks, I mentioned it earlier, 5 championships in 3 years, 3 in the Mexican League, 2 in the Caribbean World Series, which is an incredible feat just to win 1 championship in the Caribbean World Series, let alone 2, and then 3 championships in Mexico. The Obregon, what was the toughest thing about repeating in Obregon as far as, your second time winning, then the third? What's the toughest part of that?
I think the problem that happened with a lot of managers or coaches is when you win the first time, you want to be perfect the second time. So you don't have to be perfect. All you have to take is all the energy that you finish with, understand your players, and just carry over and put them together in the same bus that you will be driving to the second championship. As soon as you win the first time and you start looking at players like this guy doesn't have a range, he's not the same as last year. One of the owner came to me and goes, "Oh, so and so is not the same as last year." I said, "Well, he got the same legs and the same arms. He works the same. What's the problem?" And he goes, "Well, he's not hitting." I said, "Well, he's probably not going to have the same year as last year, but he's going to have a good year." And to cut the story short, at the end of the season, when we win the second championship, he said, "You were right." So the worst thing is when you win the first time, and then the second time that you want to win again and start finding problems or looking at the players like he's done or he's not the same. No, man, take the same motivation that you finish and carry over and just keep on going and keep on going. And you added up little things here and there. I always tell the players, if you have a problem, come to me. And I will be there for you anytime. Doesn't have to, I remember one player says to me, "Eddie, you know what? I think I'm going to get divorced." I said, "Why are you going to get divorced?" He said, "Well, my wife fights too much." I said, "Okay, let me ask you a question. Did she take care of your kids?" "Yeah." "Did she honor your name?" "Yes." "And because she's fighting, you want to divorce her? Maybe you fight more than her. That's the only problem she got. Look at the balance. There's so many great things against one thing. Because, well, you're probably right. And today they're very successful.
Hmm.
He's still playing. He's 39 years old. Successful family, beautiful kids. So when you go to work, it's not about you as a manager. It's about what your kids can do. And that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and you got to manage your players on the field, but also off the field, as you're talking about. That's awesome. Now, the other part of this, you see in Major League Baseball, I want to ask you about this as far as the managing aspect. How involved were you? Because there's going to be changes in players sometimes. Maybe you want to, make your pitching staff a little bit better somehow. How involved were you in those 3 years in making those decisions, or was somebody else making those decisions, and then you just had to deal with that?
Eventually they get me in because my experience of as an agent in the scouting business, I always tell them in the past, I mean, give me lime, I make you lemonade, no problem. But, they always involve me. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? I remember one GM in the Dominican say, he makes the move, the manager doesn't have to know. It's wrong.
Yeah.
That's when he managed in the big league, they make move and they never told him. I said, well, if they don't let you know, it's because they don't trust you or something. I think it's a team, and it's like a blender. It have to be a democracy. It's going to be things that you see that I don't see, or vice versa. In baseball, managers have to understand, and coaches, that when we on the field, we watch a game like this very fast.
Mm-hmm.
But when the GM or the front office is sitting up there, they watch it slow. So you have to put your price and manager on one side and understand what they want to tell you. And eventually, they get you into the decisions made. So they get me involved pretty much.
Yeah, that makes sense, folks. And the manager is going to get fired if he's not doing well. So he might as well be involved in the decision making of what players he's going to have to compete with. The other amazing thing are the 2 Caribbean World Series. Now, there's a difference between Obregon 3 championships, and you've got the players in spring training all year round. All year round you're playing, or most of the season you're together. And now you got the Caribbean World Series, which is a real short tournament. What's the challenges in the Caribbean World Series? Yes, you're going to get very good players, but so are the other areas. So what's the biggest challenge?
Well, the biggest challenge was when you bring clubs from another team after you beat them. I remember when in my first one, we beat Wasabi in 7 games. That was unbelievable.
Wow.
And they still upset because, they have not won in 50 years. And I told my owner, I said, don't worry about it. Before we get to Puerto Rico, I'll make sure that we all together. So I saw him at the airport, I gave him a hug. I said, hey, it's my pleasure to be your manager. So everything was coming together. Now, my second was how I can get these guys prepared for the game, because back then they don't heat batting practice. I think I was the first one to start that. And I remember I used to, if the boss have to leave at 2, I used to actually lie to my guys, hey, we're leaving at 1. So, and I know they're going to be late, 10, 15 minutes late. That's the Caribbean Series. So, but I still on time. So that was in Maya West. So in Maya West, some of the guys that take care of the field, I give them a tip or $20. Say, hey, can you shack for me? So we tell our players, whoever wants to hit BP can come out and hit BP. Our coaches, we're going to shack, and we have people to do so. And everybody hit BP. And we was ready, and we take ground balls. So we was prepared for those games. And that was part of our success. And we did whatever, you have to prepare yourself for those games. You cannot just come out of your car and get ready to play. So those guys was a special. I mean, they played good, but also they behaved good.
I love that. Going the extra mile, do something different, something special for your players. What about the part as far as how you set up your pitching staff? That's got to be different. If you win a game or if you lose a ball game, what do you do? How was that organized? Because that's not like a regular season, is it?
I'm very picky when it comes when the game's on the line, and we say big Caliendo get up and so to get up, and I always ask the pitching coach, ask him how so and so is doing. Oh, he's not throwing strikes, so he's not going in. That's the way I am.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm a very picky guy when it comes to the bullpen. I remember in the Mexican League, they say that I use a lot of pitches. And one day I did not confront them. I asked a reporter, so let me ask you a question. How many pitches did I use? He says, well, it's about winning and you're winning. I said, no. I want to clarify with you. You say I used a lot of pitches. How many pitches did I use? Well, you also and so the same 4 pitches. That's my playoff. When it comes playoff, I put my bullpen so small, it was crazy. That's the guy they're going to be every day. Now, in the season, I want to see everybody. And I made sure that people goes in there. I want to see what they got, what they can do, who's going to be my roster when it comes to playoff. But when it comes to pitching, I'm picky. I don't relate that much of a pitcher face somebody the third time, because what I look as a charge, like last night, Mitch Lavely, which pitched for me last night, the big horse, he was facing for the third time a good hitter. And my pitching coach says, Eddie, this is going to be his third time. I said, but let me ask you a question. How many times you throw the splitter and the slider? He says, none. It's been on fastballs. I said, so he hasn't seen that pitch. So to me, it's what pitch he has seen before that at bat. And guess what? He struck them out with to be on base. So, you know, it's I understand the new era, and I adjust myself the new era. Sabermetrics is taking over to stay. I believe on it because it's information that you get to become closer to win the game. It have to be there. It's numbers crunching, and it's true. You know, a lot of times you got to go with your heart and use your brain and what you're going to get done. But you can balance both. It depends what the pitcher has thrown that guy in the last 2 at bats. That's I measure that.
Eddie, this has been outstanding, man. We're getting to the final minutes, and I kind of want to close it off with this. I want you to give kind of an overview of your career. What I mean by that is what's made you successful. You've repeated it. You've talked about it during the show, but kind of give our coaches out there and our executives and everybody out there in Copabi an understanding why you have become so successful at managing. What's been the highlights of that? And I know you mentioned your parents, how you grew up and all that.
Well, actually, when you understand the obstacles that you have and you take action, that's the main thing. A lot of people want a lot of stuff in life, Pete. And when I see you travel here and travel there, and a lot of people ask me, do you know Pete Caliendo? I say, yes, I know Pete Caliendo. I say, wow, he's very successful in what he does. He's great. I said, but you pay a high price. So when you pay a high price and you understand the obstacles you have in life after you write your goals, it's one thing, take action. And as soon as you take actions as a pilot and you have behind you your family, there's no way. I mean, I don't believe in people failing. I mean, the day that you stop taking action and going after your dreams, that's the day you fail. But if you stay in one path and say, this is what I want, and you understand your obstacles and take action, you can get whatever you want in life. I mean, I'm an example. I left the Dominican Republic with my wife, a white girl from Waterloo, Iowa. We got $250 in our pocket combined and a credit card. We went to a room, shared the bathroom. Imagine your wife sharing the bathroom with another 5 people in the building.
Wow.
And everything we escalate. It's been great. We got 4 beautiful kids. Amanda with 3 girls, married, successfully married. My girl Haley, Tyler. I mean, Haley also 3 kids. Tyler, Dylan. I mean, beautiful 5, 6 grandkids. My wife. I mean, what else can I ask? I got the love of the Lord. I got friends all over. I born in a beautiful country. I've been adopted from a beautiful, great country, the best house in the world, Mexico. And 59 years old, great friends around like you. And also I want to say this to special people. I want to congratulate Hein Bloom with the Boston Red Sox. Great job. You know, he's a man that I respect a lot. Eddie Niner with the Rays, Carlos Rodriguez, Steve Miller, Patrick, Walter. I mean, what a great job they did with organizations. You know, I'm bringing those names because I know them personally.
Absolutely.
But yeah, those you asticos and take action, big man.
Love it. I love it. Love it. Great way to end it. And folks, listen, Eddie's getting ready. They're in their season there at Mazatlan. So Eddie, want to wish you the best this season. I'll be in touch and God bless you. Thanks for doing the show, man. This was fantastic.
Thank you, Pete. Continue doing this because you're a tremendous, tremendous voice for the game of baseball all the way around, all over the world. And it's been a great time spending time with you overseas. Please say hello to your wife and your dog as well.
Yes, thank you. All right, that's Eddie Diaz. Hey, folks, I'm Pete Caliendo. I'm the host of Copabe Play Ball. I want to thank Eddie for joining us. I want to thank everybody for listening. And by the way, we got to get Eddie, folks, on the Copabe Play Ball, the Spanish version. So we're going to have our people contact them, talk, have this great talk on the Spanish side. So, folks, join us for the next episode. Thanks for listening, and we will see you soon. Adios, everybody.